everyone. Happy Friday. I am Lillian Chukura. I am the owner of Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So today I wanted to come to you and talk to you about TPS for Cameroon citizens that are in the U.S. Okay, this is huge. This is something that immigration lawyers and advocates have been fighting for years. Okay. And basically, whew, since the conflict started in Cameroon, this has been a fight to get uh, TPS for Cameroonians and make sure that they are able to stay here safely, work while the issues going on in their home country are resolved. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about today. I'm very excited about this topic. I'm very excited to be sharing this with you because, like I said, this is big. This is something that can change lives. And I am so excited to talk about this in detail with you today. So, as always, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I do go back and look at those. And if you would like to schedule a consultation with me, you can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, or by calling my office at 508 443 1788. So, first thing first, who qualifies, right? That's what everyone wants to know. Who qualifies? What's the cutoff date? What do I need to know? So the first thing is this is for Cameroonian citizens that have been in the US as of April 14, 2022. Okay. The cutoff date is April 14th, 2022. So if you are coming into the US today as a Cameroonian citizen, unfortunately, you would not qualify for TPS because you came in after April 14th. But if you have been in the US before April 14th, even if you came in on April 14th, you can still qualify. So that is big. That is something to keep in mind. It is not, saying that you had to have been in the US since 2017 or 2018. No, this is very current. This is now. Okay. So if you have been in the US since April 14th, 2022, you um, qualify. You meet the basic requirement for TPS for Cameroon. Okay. So, first thing first, what do you actually have to prove, right? So, you look at your dates, you're like, yep, I've been here since 2003 and I have never left the US. Okay. You meet the first requirement, which is the date. The next thing is, do you meet the other requirements for TPS? Okay. TPS has its own requirements that's different from other types of um, immigration benefits. So you want to make sure that not only do you meet the date requirement, but that you meet the rest of the TPS requirements as well, so that you can be on your way and know what documents you need to gather before the applications open up. Okay. So, first thing, you need to be able to prove that you are indeed from Cameroon. Okay. So that is really important. So it's not just saying, oh, yeah, I am from Cameroon, I qualify, but you have to be able to prove it. Easiest way to prove it is having a passport, a valid passport. Let me repeat that. Having a valid passport from Cameroon is the easiest way for you to prove that you are a citizen of Cameroon. You can also have your birth certificate. However, right? Depending on when your birth certificate was issued, that could lead to other issues that need to be resolved as well. Okay. So, first off, if you are, thinking that you qualify, you want to know what documents. First thing first, you need to have proof that you were in the US by April 14th, 2022. Okay. Secondly, you need to show that you are from Cameroon. And you also, not only do you have to show that you're from Cameroon, you have to show that you haven't lived anywhere else between Cameroon and here that you can be considered, a resident, permanent resident of, um, because that's something that can get you tripped up when it comes to TPS. Okay. Basically, if you are from Cameroon, you can prove that you're from Cameroon, and you can prove that you have been in the US since April 14, 2022. You have a great chance of getting this TPS. Okay? So those are the main requirements. Continuous physical presence is another requirement. So from the time that you came to the US, right? To when you file for TPS. So from basically you're showing that from April 14, 2022 to when you file your TPS that you have been continuously physically present in the US. Okay? So that means you came in before or on April 14th and you have documentation to show that you never left, right? You didn't leave the US on April 15th, right? So that's what they're looking for here. So if you came into the US, let's say in 2012, and you never left, right? Even if you overstayed your visa, understand TPS does not care, right? You are still able to apply for TPS even if you overstayed a visa. This is one of the key things to keep in mind here and why it is so beneficial for you if you meet the requirements. Okay? So remember, first, April 14, 2022, you were here on that date, right? You were physically in the US on April 14, 2022. If you came in April 15th, unfortunately, you missed that cutoff date. So if you came in April 14th, 2022, you landed at the airport, you are physically in the US, and you can prove that, you would qualify at least on the date requirement. Now, the next question people ask me is when can I actually file for TPS? Well, this was just announced. Okay. The TPS was just announced. We have to wait for them to actually issue um, the Federal Register. So basically, what the Federal Register does, it tells you exactly when the open period for registration is. So we're still waiting on that. Once that comes out, I will be updating you all because it makes such a difference to get your applications in as soon as possible. I tell everyone you should already start working on putting together your documentation, your proof of physical presence, your proof of that you are here as of April 14th, your proof that you are a Cameroonian citizen. I know people that have let their passports expire and you know they have no intention of going back to a country that is in the middle of a conflict, so they didn't go through the process of renewing their passport. Well, this may be a good time to start that process of renewing your passport, because if you remember what I said before, your passport is your best evidence that you are a citizen of that country. Okay? Because in order to get your passport for a specific country, you must be a citizen, you must present documentation that you are a citizen before they will actually go ahead and give you the passport. So, US government really, really, really likes when you have a passport and not just a birth certificate. And, from experience in the past, if you just have a birth certificate, they would want more than just the birth certificate. So they would want um, other documentation that shows that you were actually, in fact, born in Cameroon, especially if your birth certificate is from, let's say, 2 years ago. And I do know people that have a late registered birth certificates. When that's the situation, you really want to think about going ahead and just getting a passport, because that will be easier for you to prove to US government that you are a citizen of Cameroon. So those are the main things I want you to keep in mind. Know that with TPS, you can get work authorization. Okay. So that's another great thing with this is that with TPS, you can get work authorization, start, you know, building your life here. If you have been living in the US without a work authorization, now not only can you get a work authorization, you can get a social security number, you can get a license if you don't have one. So it is so beneficial to go through this process and make sure that uh, you have the documents ready to go once the it's published on when you can actually file for TPS. So the TPS is good for 18 months. Okay, so that's basically a year and a half. At that point, the US government will have to reassess and see if the situation in Cameroon has improved to the point where they can take away the TPS, or they may need to extend it even further because the situation is still the same or has gotten worse. Okay, just know the reason that the TPS was given in the first place is because of the current conflict in Cameroon. So if, let's say, the opposition and the current government come together, make peace, everything, is good in the next 18 months, then the US government may choose to not renew the TPS, right? But the chances of that happening in 18 months, we don't know. We can only hope for the best. But the US government has given 18 months of you being able to stay in the US, work in the US, live without any issues of dealing with US immigration trying to remove you from the US. Okay. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It is good for that 18 months. And then we would, of course, keep advocating for it to be renewed again so that the people that it has benefited can continue benefiting from it. Okay. So, what is the process? Right? The first process is filing your application. You have to go in, file your application. There is a filing fee, pay that filing fee, or if you're not able to and you qualify for a fee waiver, go ahead and file for a fee waiver. There is a caveat with fee waivers. If your fee waiver is denied, USCIS will return your application and you'll basically have to start over again. So if you are able to pay for the TPS filing fee, go ahead and pay for it just so there's no delays in you being approved. Once you file your application and USCIS receives it, you will get a receipt notice letting you know that it has been received and it will be processed. Now, the next step is getting your biometrics, which is getting fingerprinted and having your picture taken. The biometrics, the purpose of it is really for the US government to be able to do a background check on you. That's really the purpose of it. I know sometimes people think it's no, the purpose is for them to do a background check. See if there's any criminal history they need to worry about, see if there's multiple names with the same biometrics. Um, so that's what they're really looking at here. And once you do your biometrics, the important thing there is they can start processing your application, right? Until you do your biometrics, things are on hold. So let's say they schedule your biometrics and you do not go or you had to reschedule. Just know everything else will kind of stay on hold until you're able to do that. All right. So, next thing is USCIS will decide if you're eligible for a work authorization. Right. So, that's really the next step. So, if this is your first time applying for TPS, which for all of you, this is the first time Cameroon is designated for the TPS. So therefore, that this is going to be your first time applying for TPS. So USCIS will review your case, determine whether you qualify for a work authorization before they make a final decision on your TPS application. Okay. So hear me again. When you file your TPS application, USCIS will review your case to see if you are eligible for a work authorization before they even make a decision on your TPS application. If you are found to be eligible for work authorization, you then will receive a work authorization document, so the work authorization card. If your application is denied and you choose to appeal it, you are able to appeal it, and your work authorization will be extended while you're waiting for a decision on the appeal. Okay, so remember, most of the work authorizations are only going to be good for 18 months because that's what TPS is designated for at the moment. So if it is extended, you're able to then apply to renew the work authorization. Okay, so it's really, really important that we look at all your history, make sure you do qualify for work authorization. And ask for it, right? Sometimes people don't ask for work authorization because they don't plan on working, or they don't qualify. All right. So if you know that getting a work permit is important to you in this TPS process, you definitely should let your lawyer know, as you're going through that process, so that they know that's something that is important to you, that's something that you want to ask for. And they will be able to then look at your application, look at your qualifications, and make sure that you are putting everything needed for you to get the work authorization automatically. All right. So remember, file for the TPS. USCIS decides whether you qualify for work authorization. If they feel like you do after their initial review of your application. So this is even before they approve your TPS, right? So if after initial review of your TPS, if they feel that you qualify for work authorization, you will get work authorization. But if they feel that you don't and your TPS is denied, you can then go ahead and appeal the decision or refile if you're still within the 18 months. All right. So then once you have your work authorization, USCIS is still working on your TPS application to make sure you do qualify. And if they have any questions, if they need more documents, they will ask you for those in something called a request for evidence. If they looked at your application and they decide that, I think we're going to deny this TPS application, they will send you something called a notice of intent to deny. This will give you a chance to respond to whatever it is they think makes you not eligible. Okay. So they will not outright deny your case. You do have a chance, um, on basically changing their minds with more documentation and countering whatever negative thing they think will make you not eligible for TPS. Okay, so this is very important, very, very important that you pay attention to all those things, and make sure that one, you're starting now, getting your documents together, and two, you are really paying attention to the requirements and you are understanding the sequence of events. Okay, do not expect, you know, your TPS to be approved in a week, right? That's really what we mean by that. There is an expectation that they will process TPS faster. However, there may be, 40,000 people applying for TPS at the same time, and USCIS may get bogged down on applications. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. If you want to travel outside of the US, while you have TPS, you can apply for a travel document. Okay, so U.S. government may approve a travel document for you to travel to another country and come back. if your TPS is approved. Okay, so again, you want to do that if traveling is very important to you, or if you may have a need to travel at some point. You want to, discuss that with your lawyer and see if that's something that is beneficial to you to do, and then go ahead and put in the paperwork for a travel document. Remember, if you leave the US without a travel document, your TPS goes away. Okay? Let me just make that clear again. If you leave the US without a travel document, which is basically permission to leave the US and come back, if you leave the US without that permission, you're not coming back to the US. Your TPS goes away, your status goes away, your employment authorization goes away. So it's really, really important that if you know or you have a feeling that you may need to travel, that you are discussing that with your lawyer from the beginning, so that all those applications can be put in once you're qualified for them, and that you are not leaving the US without that being granted. Okay? So, really, really important. Next thing, you really want to make sure that once you file for TPS, if you move, while your TPS application is pending, update your address with USCIS. Like, that is so important. Like, I've seen so many people move and never change their address, never do anything, and USCIS sends them a notice for their fingerprints or sends them their work authorization, and they never get it because they never changed their address. And if you miss your biometrics, USCIS cannot continue processing your case. If you never call them to reschedule your biometrics, they will consider your application abandoned, and you will have to start all over again. And if you paid for the filing fee, you will have to repay it again, because they will not refund you that filing fee. So it is super important, so important that you change your address whenever you move, if you have a application pending with USCIS. In the TPS sense, you really want to do it, because if they send you that work authorization, you want to receive it, right? You want to make sure that you receive it and it doesn't go back to USCIS. You want to make sure that you get it when it's sent to you. So just keep that in mind as you are going through and making the decision of whether to file for TPS, and what documents you will need. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. Just a quick rundown. You want to make sure that you were in the US by April 14, 2022. If you are in the US on that date, you qualify for, you meet that physical presence requirement. Okay, you just have to be physically in the US by April 14, 2022 to meet the physical presence requirement. You have to then also show that you are a Cameroonian citizen by birth certificate with additional documentation, or the US government's favorite, a passport that's still valid. So, and for work authorization, USCIS will make that determination after taking a look at an initial review of your application. And if they feel that you qualify, they will send you a work authorization. Once your TPS is approved and you want to travel outside of the US, you should be filing for a travel document so that you do not leave the US without permission. Because if you leave the US without permission, it would be nearly impossible for you to come back. So keep those three things in mind. And if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to put them in the comments. I am so happy about this new designation, and I am happy to discuss it further with you all. If you would like to talk to me personally and see if you qualify specifically, go ahead and call my office. Let's schedule a time to talk and get you on your way to applying for CPS. That is all I have for you today. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you know someone who needs to hear this, go ahead and share this video with them. If you are watching in a place where you can subscribe and you do not want to miss any of my uploads, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And as always, I am Lillian Chukura. I am the owner of Lily Legal, where we do immigration law and we do it well. Bye for now.